In 50 years, when it all blows over, African historians will write about the legend that was once Europe. Europe will be in smoking ruins. Any Western Europeans left will be African, Arab, Indian or Chinese, picking through the ruins. The biggest disease we have in the West is hypocrisy. It is a hypocrisy how the EU bans Russia yet supports genocide in Palestine. The USA-led coalition with its minions illegally attacked Iraq, murdering millions, yet was never sanctioned or remorseful. It was all about the fucking oil. Theft of resources. We now fight a proxy war in Ukraine, pushing back surges of migrants and refugees from countries we bombed and sanctioned, and the corporatists in the private continue to steal with no consequences, impoverishing us yet further, flying jets and carbon offsetting, then investing in carbon credit fake industry. We could have all had peace. We could have had prosperity. Now it is far too late. Know the truth, and it will set you free. The great Satan is real, and they do not try to hide it anymore. Here is a list of wars since 1950, and it's massive. The great Satan has been involved in many conflicts. Korea 1950 to 53, China, Iran with the overthrow of the legitimate government in 1953, Laos, carpet bombing, Nicaragua, Cambodia, Lebanon, Grenada, Libya, Haiti, Iraq 1, Kuwait, Somalia, Iraq, Afghanistan, Yugoslavia 1999, Afghanistan for 20 years, Iraq for 20 years, the impoverished Yemen, the poorest country in the world, we're still bombing it, Haiti, probably second in the world for poverty, Somalia, Iran again, Libya, Syria, which is still occupied, Iraq, Somalia, Afghanistan. Does it sound familiar? And of course, now Palestine. However, putting this aside, the focus of this piece is Europe, or specifically EU-Europe, the EU, European Union. Despite the chance for peace in 1989 when the Berlin Wall came down and GDR was given up despite 28 million, actually 39 million and counting Soviet deaths, the price paid for our liberty and no shot fired, a reunited Germany with evil Genscher sought revenge on Yugoslavia and broke it up. The first war in Europe since World War II, with millions displaced and hundreds of thousands killed over a decade. Then NATO, despite claiming not 1 inch eastwards, lied, mopped up the Warsaw Pact countries, then came to Russia's doorstep in 2022, threatening its security. This could never be tolerated, and defensive actions are not surprising from Russia. Further, WWR, aka Washington Westminster regime, is creating global NATO to attack China using Taiwan as a proxy, drawing in Australia, South Korea, and Japan. Examples of NATO handiwork. NATO is no defensive organization. It is always creating war, looking for war, murdering millions or displacing them. We must recall that EU-European regimes existed by mass exploitation and theft, from slavery to occupation to oil, diamond and uranium appropriation. Now that Syria stood up to US, EU bullies with Russian and Iranian help, The events from 2012 forced the tide to turn. African, South American, and Asian countries are ditching the US dollar, standing up for themselves and joining BRICS. Colonization no more. The BRICS conference in Kazan in October 2024 will define the BRICS currency and payment system independent of the worthless US dollar. This will eliminate US worldwide hegemony. But it will take years for the beast to die. It is only a matter of time before BRICS countries form a military alliance to protect their populations from the WWR threat. It looks bright for some. European politicians are not only run by Zionists, but American Zionist puppets, Zio puppets, disrespecting on our so-called democracies, using its war bases to attack Iraq, Libya, Yugoslavia, and Afghanistan. With the destruction of Nord Stream 2 and the shameful cowardice of Scholz and Baerbock, Germany proved to be a compliant drone, devoid of any action of its own, or any action for its own citizens. In fact, this act of terror destroyed the German economy and will cost €1 trillion over the next 10 years. The rest of Europe will suffer as a manufacturing powerhouse pays 3 times more for energy. Thankfully, South Stream, before the EU decided to stop it, was supposed to be operational, and Balkan countries, Slovakia and Hungary, still have cheap gas. It is so comforting to be able to stop at a Gazprom or Lukoil energy station in Macedonia or Serbia. But further wars are coming to Europe. Events in Kosovo and Metohija with Albano-fascist terrorists are rearing their head again. Serbs want revenge on Uçaka, and the time is right now to destroy their terror shrines and take back our heritage before it is too late. UN Resolution 1244 is still valid. People forget also the situation in Cyprus, which has been occupied by Turkey since 1974, a country which now drone strikes its 20% Kurdish minority with no condemnation from the West, and it is still occupying part of Syria, extracting their oil. Drone images show massive destruction in Gaza City. Then, although Israel is not in Europe, the massive bombing campaign unleashed now against Arab civilians will have ramifications for Jews in Europe. It is clearly genocide, intensively televised since October the 7th, 2023. Palestinians and their sympathisers will rise up against fascist France, UK and Germany, who send weapons there to keep the status quo, and whose silence is bought by gold, a few miserable shekalim, or the threat of crashing their economies by the Rothschild cabal of international central banksters. Europe bows to its Zionist masters. The UK has sent at least 2 warships to the Eastern Mediterranean, and we have 2 million starving children, yet no vote in Parliament, which was completely bypassed. If we witness recent police murders of North Africans in France, and how anger sparked over into sustained rioting, we know the people are angry of deprivation, of lies and propaganda, of theft. We are fed up of our unelected dictators who are answerable only to WEF or pro-US or pro-Israel entities, and definitely not to us. The tide is turning, and mass action will sweep Europe like a wildfire, ready to overthrow the resident bloated corporate layer. Completely woke Sweden, pretending to be a great place to live, has the highest number of shootings per 100,000 population and regular Quran burnings. the country of high costs, low wages, hidden poverty, and anti-Islam. The hideous goal of Professor Spector was to lead a Jewish diversification 20 years ago, and it has come to pass. Do you like it? The one country in the world with no diversity is Israel. Fakery and propaganda are rampant. We lock up journalists like Assange and try to arrest others like Snowden. Richard Medhurst was himself detained at Heathrow from Article 12, allegedly. The events in fascist UK are deeply worrying. Posting unrealizable hate on social media can get you jail time, but the government is okay to send love bombs to murder children from countries which never attacked us. One cannot express freedom of speech without fear of a jail sentence and a fine, plus cancellation. Remember, if you want to stop endless war, deal with the consequences. The blowback. You reap what you sow. When Germany broke up Yugoslavia in 1991 and proudly bombed it again in 1999, it was destroying an ideal. Yugoslavia was already a small European Union of 24 million people, wealthy, educated, industrious, and well connected, religiously tolerant with several languages and peoples. This was the final nail in the coffin of EU-Europe. The side effects have just taken decades to crystallize, and they will worsen. British people have suffered significantly from not having viable politicians, from Blair to Sunak and Starmer. They cannot understand why hundreds of thousands of illegals come to our shores from Afghanistan, Pakistan, North Africa or Iraq. Yet they blame a bad Brexit or Russia or something else banal like fake climate change. UK's economy is 30% lower in real terms than at the 2008 financial crash, and on a downward spiral as corporatists laugh and pat their fat bellies. The recent riots in the UK, sparked by stabbings of 3 little girls, are only a small part of what will happen. The hate against immigrants and Muslims is spilling over, but the demonstrators are not attacking the people who caused the problems, the ones who control the WWR and use our politicians for their own benefit. The further provocation by NATO smuggling weapons on grain ships to Odessa and now a provocative Black Sea naval exercise can only spell even more doom for Europe. Further, the incursion into Russia proper, notably Kursk, was definitely orchestrated by NATO, attacking refineries, civilians and bridges. Russia has a right to defend itself, and it will. The final war in Europe will be an unrecoverable catastrophe with a consequently annihilated Germany. So, the West lost. Liberal democracy meant absolutely nothing in the end. It was all a scam. They called it a rules-based order. Their rules. And now a multipolar world. Yes, multipolar with BRICS only very soon. The genocide in Palestine and the decade-long war against Russia via Ukraine undermined all the babble. The constant illegal war since 1990 only made the well-connected international central bankers wealthy and the citizens significantly poorer, and now they are rebelling. Revolutions will come after the riots, but the right people must be replaced, never to rule again. And America will not escape justice. With no military or economic foothold from its minions in Europe, a raging civil war, with 200 million registered firearms and a worthless fiat currency, it will be exposed on 4 large fronts: east and north from Russia, west from China, Russia and North Korea, and south from Mexico. It cannot hide any more in its isolationism. Peace be upon the righteous, for vengeance will be awesome.